that it is a little bit off of the 3:15 time frame, but I was on with a coaching client, and gotta serve people as best as can be. And I am super excited about this topic. And here's why, because it's something that I have struggled with in the past. It is something that I continue to challenge myself to go above and beyond, and to not allow my limiting beliefs to dictate how I'm showing up in the world. So if you can relate on that, then this program is for you. If you feel like you're maybe underliving your potential, or you are just kind of letting yourself get by as opposed to really pushing to succeed in all of your brilliance, then this session is for you. Now, I would love to hear from you in the chat box. So feel free to put your name in there, say hello, let me know if you've ever found yourself playing small when you wish you were going to play big. And this topic really is something that came out of my decision to to do a program called 75 Hard. And so for the first 75 days of the challenge, basically you have 5 tasks. You need to work out twice a day. One of those workouts needs to be outdoors. So for 2 45-minute workouts. And that is a lot of fun when it's 20 below out, but we'll talk about that in a moment. And then the next thing was you had to follow a diet, no cheat meals, including no junk food and no alcohol. You had to, oh my gosh, what was the first round? I should already know this. This is the easy stuff now that I had to do phase 1. Anyway, I'll find it here. Okay, so workout, to 4 liters of water a day. Oh my gosh, I'm totally forgetting what I had to do. Doesn't matter. Did it for 75 days, successfully completed. And that shocked me. I'm going to be really honest with you. It's not that I didn't think I could do it. It's that a year before deciding to do it, I never would have thought, A, that I would want to do it, and B, that I could have actually done it. Okay. Oh, watching me on the big screen today. I don't even know what that means. I'd love to know. By the way, don't mind my delay on my voice. I'm going to try a different microphone. Watch this. How's that? Nope, still delayed. Never mind. Tech challenges. I'm going to be calling tech support after this call. Okay, awesome. Glad you're here. And who have we got? Hey, Carolyn. Hi, nice to see you. Thank you very much. All right. So if you're playing small, and like I said, a year ago when I heard people were doing this challenge called 75 Hard, I was the person who, with a non-judgmental way, would roll my eyes. And I don't mean literally, I would never do that to somebody, but I was just like, yeah, that's something I will never do. Well, never say never, because I did 75 Hard. And then on December 28th, I decided to do what they call phase 1. So 75 Hard is just the beginning. 75 days, no cheat meals, working out, the water, the reading 10 minutes a day, all of that. And then you can live 75 Hard for the year. And the way that works is there are 3 phases. And in phase 1, you do everything that was in 75 Hard, and then you add another 8 critical tasks into your day. And so you get to choose what they are. For me, all of them except for 3 rotated. So 3 rotated and 5 of them were stationary, new habits that I wanted to create in my life. So for example, I had to map out my day. Okay. The other thing is that in addition to the 75 Hard requirements, you had to visualize your dreams and your future for 10 minutes a day uninterrupted. You also had to have a 5-minute cold shower. And when we say cold shower, we mean cold. So like gasp with a bit of a, am I about to have a heart attack kind of cold. That was for 30 days only though. So that was shockingly, I did it. I did it again. And I'm ready to do it again. So what is very interesting, because when I'm in the middle of it, I do all of the things that are required of me. sometimes when we're not in a routine, when we're not facing a really, specific challenge or have a checklist, I am less disciplined in getting the things that matter done. So, for example, working out. I've been out of the house and on the road. And so I've not been, until this morning, I was like, why am I not working out when I worked out twice a day? I'm only expecting myself now to work out once a day when I'm in between the challenge days. And it was like, oh, isn't that an interesting phenomenon, right? When there's structure to what our goals are, we can push ourselves to do more than when there is no structure. So, big lesson for me, I've got to have those structure and that expectation for myself. But I think one of the things, it's so easy to underestimate what we can accomplish. Now, please know, I believe there's a balance between pushing ourselves and being in flow and doing what really is going to serve our best needs. Okay, so, but I think that I got so into the in flow for a while that I wasn't willing to accept myself to push, push, push. Okay. And, but on the other extreme, I used to be the person who worked 18 hours a day, never said no to anyone, constantly wanted to serve, 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 and was wearing myself out. Like I was the epitome, like the poster child for burnout. And because all I ever did was push. And I never gave myself the space and the grace to heal from the adversities at that point in my life that I was healing from, with my dad dying and my grandma dying and my other grandma dying and just a lot of death around me and the surgeries. And my answer to trying to avoid a lot of those feelings was to push and do, because if I'm busy, 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 then I don't have to feel the feels, right? I don't know if you can relate to that, but I think there is definitely a balance between I need the space and the grace to heal, to process the big things in life, to have fun, to recharge the batteries, and at the same time, having an expectation of yourself that you're actually going to achieve something or work towards a bigger goal that in the past maybe you didn't think you could actually ever really achieve. Okay, so something to consider, and that balance is a little bit different for everybody. Next on the list is really to look at the story. I'm doing great. Thank you for the question from YouTube. Great to have you back here. And thanks for your comments the other day on another one of the videos. I think I responded to you last night when I was on YouTube. Okay. So the next thing we want to look at is we want to look at the story that you're telling yourself. See, you may be underestimating your brilliance because you've got stuck on a loop from the past. Okay. So before I did 75 hard successfully and long before I ever thought I'd even want to do it, the story I told myself was I'm not somebody who is, kind of the worker outer. I would never work out for 2 times a day. And like I had this story about myself. And then when I really challenged that story and said, okay, well, what leads me to believe that that's who I need to be? Like, what if I am the person who would work out twice a day? How would I even know? Right? Like if I don't actually give it a shot. And, but if you think about like even you might have a story. I was working with someone a while ago and the story is, I don't speak up in meetings. Well, why not? Because once you spoke up in a meeting and somebody cut you off and didn't pay attention and listen to what you had to say, and then later took the idea that you were trying to say and made it their own and, kind of pushed you out of the conversation. Well, that was one situation, but now what do you know and how can you show up differently? And so really challenging these stories. I'm curious from you if you have any stories that are really maybe holding you back of who you could be, right? I'm someone who I used to have lots of stories about myself and I'm sure I still do. I mean, that's the beauty of this personal development journey that we all go on is that it's never done. There's always more growth, always more growth. And it's interesting because one of the ones that I'm really grappling with right now, if you want to talk about extreme beyond the 75 hard, is I'm thinking about doing a Tough Mudder. And in September. So if anybody wants to do that with me, I don't have any friends who've said yes yet. So, but I'm really like grappling with what's the story of like, I could never be the person who would do that, right? Like running up that huge wall. Like, I just don't understand how I could possibly do that. But then I'm like, wait a second, is this a story? I've got lots of months. Could I be training for it in some of my things, like setting it as a goal and challenging myself, right? To do more. Like so often our past story defines who we are, and our past doesn't define who we are now or in the future. The past story defines who we were in the past. And now we can choose to gain new skills. We can choose to step out of our comfort zone. We can choose to take a different path and decide that that no longer is how we're going to show up in the world. Something to consider. I think one of the things that really made it easy for me to do 75 hard both times. So 75 hard for 75 days, and then phase 1 with the additional 8 tasks plus, well, actually it's an additional 10 tasks because you also have the visualization and the cold shower, was when I made a decision to do it. The question was not when or if, it was when. So I never woke up in the morning and thought, okay, am I going to do my 2 workouts today? No. I looked at my calendar and I said, when am I going to do my 2 workouts today? And in fairness, there were a couple nights that it was 10 o'clock at night and I was out in, 10 below zero weather with my toque on and my ski jacket and my, fuzzy pants trying to get warm, but working out. And, that's because that's what it takes. And I think so many times we let ourselves off the hook by giving an if instead of a when. And so when you make a decision and you say, okay, I'm going to do this, put it in the calendar, figure out how to do it. I think the storyline is so like, I don't really feel like it. There are a lot of important things in our lives that we don't feel like doing. But just because we don't feel like it doesn't mean that we don't need to do it. In actual fact, just because we don't feel like it is probably a reason to buck up a little bit and decide to keep going. Oh, yeah, here's a great question, because I think this is a perfect example of how we have limiting beliefs that are holding us back. So let me read this for you. Could you tell me how to detach from the extreme patterns of self-destruction habits or thoughts which prevent us from living in the present? Okay, so when we're not living in the present, we're doing one of 2 things. We are either living in the past or we are living in the future. Okay? When we live in the past, we are replaying, and they actually say, I forget who says that saying, where if you're depressed, you're living in the past. If you're anxious, you're living in the future. And we only want to be in the present as best we can. So let's talk about living in the past first. So what are the storylines? And this is, by the way, a perfect time to apply the problem-solving framework, but I won't totally get into that today. But if you, actually, I have to because it's the only way I think about solving these problems. Okay. First step, situational awareness. What's the real issue? So when are you defaulting to the past? What are you really focusing on? What stories are you overtelling? Are you having moments of embarrassment? Let's write down the past, okay? Or what are the things that are holding you back? That's it. First step in the situational awareness. Second step is you've got to figure out what about that past is within my control or out of my control. And you can apply this, by the way, to the future, to the past, or any problem in the human experience. What's within my control? Now, a lot of people will say, if it's out of your control, don't focus on it at all. For me, I think that goes against human nature because there's a lot of things that are outside of our control that cause us an emotional charge that if we ignore it, that's just denial and it's not going to do anything to help us move forward. So we understand and we write down what about this is within my control and what about it's out of my control so that we are aware and we can allocate the necessary mental and emotional resources to each. Okay. So that when we're thinking about and trying to process something that's completely out of our control, we actually know that we're doing that. Okay. And we're like, yeah, no, this is really out of my control, but I got to go into the feel the feels, right? Then, of course, those of you who've been following along in the videos know for sure it goes into is it a task, an obstacle, or an adversity? So if you're focusing on the past, there may be things that have been created that are obstacles that you need to process, okay? Or you need to solve for. Like if they created an obstacle that is in the present that you can't solve for, because the past, one of the things we can't control is the fact that it's in the past and we can't change any of it. But again, when we start looking to the future, right? Like that's just trying to predict the future, which is like, I haven't met anybody with a crystal ball that actually works. So kind of a pointless endeavor there, isn't it? Actually, I have some cool memes on this, like actual carousels. I don't know if you're following me on LinkedIn, but if you aren't, please do, because there's lots of stuff around this crystal balling and worrying. Next thing so that's situational awareness. Then it's self-awareness. Okay. What am I emotionally, mentally, physically? How is this showing up for me? And potentially, how am I making it harder to deal with? And then we go into solution activation. So if the goal is to come into the present moment and we've decided that we're spending a lot of time in the past, then we want to unpack all of that. What can we do in this moment that will bring us closer? Anyway, I mean, it would be really cool if I could hear all the story about what's going on with you in this. But yeah, that is like, just keep applying the problem solving framework and working the problem until you can come out of it. And part of this is, caring enough about yourself. Like maybe the issue is you don't believe you are talented. And this is why you'll underestimate or have these self-destructive patterns. And like, do you feel like you deserve success? Right? And if you feel you deserve it, but you're afraid of it, why are you afraid of it? Do you feel like, and this is the compassionately curious, like just really exploring and figuring out, like, why are you doing these patterns? Right? Like I had so many self-limiting beliefs and patterns, and I still do, and I still have to overcome them. And sometimes they like rear their ugly head. I got back into doing a bunch of media stuff, and I got to tell you, I'm so thrilled to be doing media again, but I stopped doing it for about 2 years. And that was because of a limiting belief. I didn't want to come off as tone deaf in the middle of, COVID. And I had done an interview that somebody in my life who I, really care about his opinion had said I kind of looked really nervous, and he was surprised that I was so nervous. And I'm like, well, it was national TV. So I guess that's why don't see you on national TV, but it really crushed my cookies. There was obviously more to it than that. And I stopped doing it for a long time. And so this anxiety about going out into the media really just, stopped me from ever doing it. And so I would have this pattern of going, oh, I really want to pitch this story idea. And then it would like go and like be on the list, and I would never get around to it. And I finally had to look and go, okay, what is going on? And then I applied the problem solving framework, got really, really curious about those limiting beliefs, and then came up with some solutions on how to do it. But I think ultimately, when we know exactly what's holding us back and what we really want, and we feel that fear, what was so big for me was like, I was like I am completely afraid of pushing send on this email to pitch the story idea, like to the point where I feel nauseous. And you know what I did? I went, oh, look at me feeling nauseous and scared about something that I don't want to be scared about anymore. And I'm going to get right back into this media. And I pushed send, and I'll tell you, that was the most satisfying moment, because when we push ourselves to do the thing that we need to do, that is important, that we want to do, but we're afraid to do, or we don't feel like doing, and we do it anyway, that's how we make magic. I mean, magic. Maybe that's a drama, right? I don't know if what I'm creating is magic, but you know what? I ended up getting 2 huge media spots from pushing that send, right? And you guys would have seen them, right? Your morning on CTV's Your Morning, and then I was on CHCH talking about this concept of coping fatigue and being exhausted from having to continually be resilient. And that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't have gone through the problem-solving framework, recognized that I had a limiting belief and had kind of gotten some anxiety around doing media, and like really just felt the fear and did the thing anyway. So I'm going to challenge you for that. Thank you for that. I think that's the hang 10 sign. Very cool. Okay, so Mohib, thanks. I think one-sided love has made me weak and careless, or think down upon me, despite of having very good intentions. Sometimes we end up being the villain of the story. It's hard to deal with. You know what? But here's the thing, and I'm no expert in love. Like, this is not my area of bailiwick. But I'll tell you, when it comes to relationships or any variable that is outside of you, we as humans have to be so steadfast in how we believe in ourselves, like how kind we are to ourselves, to know that we show up with the best intentions, to do the things, to be okay with learning and failing and getting back up and showing up. And if it's unrequited, if people do not love us back, if people do not show up, if people aren't consuming our content, then they're just not the right people for us. And there are billions and billions of people out in the world. And I think instead of focusing on the people who are not interested in being with us, we need to focus on finding and showing up for the people who do. And that is freedom. Because when you are confident in who you are, if you are confident in showing up in a way that is going to serve others in the best way possible, but like, if they're not interested, if you did the best you could, then go find the people who are, or person who is, if it's in a case of a relationship. I've had friends who've ghosted me, and, we all do go through that, and it hurts. Oh my God, it does. But if you showed up with the best intentions, with the best way you could in that moment, with the knowledge and experience that you had at that time, we can't beat ourselves up for the past, because we did the best we could. And so right now in this moment, how can we show up even better and, really just step into who you are, so you can attract the right people into your life. So I think it's really easy to let ourselves off the hook. And I talked about this earlier, but for those of you who are just joining in now, it's like the balance between pushing ourselves to be better and embracing and honoring when we need to take our foot off the gas. And this balance is hard to find, but if it feels rewarding to push yourself, that's the cue to keep going. Like, if you've got a little bit more left in you, and you choose to let yourself off the hook without actually going into and doing that, then you're going to disappoint yourself. However, if pushing for further is going to exhaust you, and it's not going to energize you, or it's not the right thing to do, then that's when you have to give yourself the space and the grace to back off. And so it's really hard to find that sweet spot. But one thing, doing 75 hard, both now the 75-day challenge and then the 30-day follow-up phase 1 challenge, is recognizing that there's always more to give, right? There is more in the tank. Not always. Sorry, that's the wrong word. There is often more in the tank than we think there is. And when we're doing the thing that's healthy for us, it should ideally energize. I think one of the reasons people are burning out so much right now, and why they're feeling like, just like, I don't have anything left to give and I'm so done, is because where they're putting their energy, how they're showing up in the world, is not aligned for their greatest good. So it's a lot of time other people's agendas. It's expectations of themselves or others that are completely unrealistic, or are founded in beliefs that maybe they don't really agree with at the core. It could be that they're just, did I already say everybody else's agenda? Not saying no when they really should be. Or, showing up angry in their family, in their home, in their work, with a pessimistic view because they're upset about, something over here, and they're letting that negativity overshadow everything that's happening in their lives. Right? And then nothing good is coming out of it. I think that's leading to a lot of burnout, folks. Anyway, so I hope that gives you some ideas of like pushing, because I think a lot of us are underliving our potential. And if we really, whether it's we're concerned what other people think, or we're feeling a sense of, if I do this, they're going to laugh. Here's the thing. So what if they laugh? Can you laugh with them? Or do you care if they're laughing? Or, you know what? Show me I had a comment on one of my videos, and I went to look to see who had commented, right, on their thing. They've never actually posted a video ever. And I'm reminded of Brene Brown's point. And she says, you know what? If somebody's not in the arena, if they're not putting themselves out there, if they are not participating in the same arena that you are, then their opinion is null and void. Think about that, right? Like, but even if they laugh, even if you completely fail and you are completely embarrassed, but you did it anyway, what freedom in that? Because pushing the comfort zone happens in inches, right? It's not like we can push and push and push and push and push, and then all of a sudden it just becomes comfortable. For those of you who remember my very first live, right? I'm sure I was full of ums and ands and trying to find, where do I go? And, and I don't know if I don't even have a judgment of did it get better or not. It's just like, I just love it. I love it now. Whereas before I would get anxious about it, but like anything, as we do it more and more and more often, we're going to get better at it. So if there's something that is just like out there and you're like, I want to go for that, I'm going to challenge you to go for it. And like, do what I did with the fear, right? Like, I recognize it, feel it, embrace it, and take that next step anyway, because something really good could come out of it. And, now, and I've got another media opportunity potentially coming up. And all of that was because in that exact moment when I was going to push delete on my first email, I decided to push send. Yeah. So another question, great question here, coming over from YouTube. One more question. How to deal and get ahead in career with uncertainty or lack of plan at initial stages. Whew. Okay. big questions. You got really big questions, and they're I think I actually have some stuff there. If you go on YouTube and you search my channel, there might be I think a full video on how to deal with uncertainty. And so here's what I'm going to say about that. We never have an uncertainty. We have a false sense of certainty, and then we make a decision based on what we think is certain, when in actual fact, whatever we think is certain is not necessarily certain. And this is like COVID was a great example. Like anybody who did their 2020 planning for this is the way I'm going to build my business this year, got a rude awakening. Like if you did 5-year planning in 2015, you weren't on track. Like you cannot predict the future. And so the more comfortable that we can be with uncertainty, the more successful we're going to be. And actually, as I'm saying that out loud, I'm thinking specifically of Tony Robbins, who says that our success in life is relative to the direct balance between our ability to need certainty and our ability to be okay with uncertainty. And we need both, right? We need to have a little bit of like, okay, yep, this is the plan, this is the direction that we're going in, and be okay with the uncertainty. So the way I've embraced uncertainty is number one, to learn how to trust myself when a new situation arises. See, I used to try to rehearse for, all these negative possibilities, and some of them would never actually come to fruition. But when you just trust yourself to be like, okay, well, whatever life throws at me, I'll figure it out then, it makes things a lot easier. Right? Now, so trusting yourself, but also making a game of it, right? In terms of like, what are the possibilities? Like not getting so fixated on this is the way I want something to go, which is again tied to expectations and, goes down that rabbit hole. But if we can go, this is how I want things to go, and create alternative storylines, right? Of, well, it might go that way, but it could also go this way, or it could go that way, and I would be all right with that, right? Then we can explore and just feel like we're going through life exploring what actually is the reality. But this comes back to the earlier conversation about being in the present moment, staying in this moment, not getting too caught up in the past. And if we are, then processing it and applying the problem-solving framework to the pieces of that puzzle that aren't working for us. And also on the other side, not living in the future, trying to predict, with our crystal ball that's, I guarantee you, malfunctioning. And, really just trusting how we can show up for that. And when it comes to your career and initial stages, again, looking at expectation, do you need to, sort of take a zigzag approach? Most of us do, right? Like when I started my career, it certainly wasn't speaking in front of corporate audiences or, writing books or anything like that. Of course not. No, I was selling makeup and working at a car rental shop and waitressing and then bartending and then being a receptionist and then selling Maui Jim sunglasses and learning that I loved sales and then going into car sales and learning I didn't love car sales and then, like sort of trying a whole bunch of different things until I got in the not-for-profit sector and then became an executive director of an eating disorder association or organization, and then becoming a columnist and then going into politics. Like I could never have predicted that path. And so learning how to just be present and be like, okay, today's lesson is this, and I'm going to embrace this and be okay with that. Okay. So I hope that gives you some ideas. But if you're playing small, I'm going to challenge you again to step up and, maybe rewatch some of this video. I see a bunch of you have come on now at the end, just as I'm closing up, which is okay. But just like trust yourself that you can and do more. And then like, and I'm saying this to myself. I mean, all of the things I ever say are to myself as well. But it's like, playing small is not what we're on this earth to do. Like, whatever your purpose is, if you don't know what it is, you gotta, that's a whole other story. But like, figure it out and take the first step to making it happen. But maybe you need to do something like a 75 hard challenge, or something that maybe isn't quite as intense, but maybe, you could add 3 things to your list each day to create some new habits that you're going to incorporate. And don't ask if, ask when. Put them into the calendar and don't sell yourself short. Like, actually just do them. And then see what happens with your life as it expands. All right. I must go. It is time. If you haven't yet, definitely look at my books. Take Back Your Weekend, Stress Less, Do More, Be Happier. And I also have an online course of the same name. And I'll tell you, that is helping people if they are overwhelmed with their workload. Like, it's really getting some great feedback. So I think that's a really great next step as well. And if you are organizing a conference or have a team who maybe is underperforming or feeling really stressed and overwhelmed and burned out, and then let's talk, because that's where I can shine and help them do what they do. So until next Monday, I hope that you have an absolutely amazing week. Step into your brilliance, and I hope you will stress less, do more, and be happier. Have a beautiful day.